have failed this city.
What's up, guys? It's me, Movie Man, back again with another video. As you could tell from the intro, today we're doing Arrow. So today I'm finally getting to my season's ranking video for Arrow. Should have probably done this a year ago when the show ended, but I've just been really busy, but I'm finally getting to it. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, so coming in last place at number 8 is, and I'm going to have to start dodging bullets because it's not season 4, it's season 6. Mad World. I'm putting my hands in the air. Don't shoot me anymore. Let me defend myself. Let me make a case. Okay, so I know majority of people would put season 4 at the bottom of the list. But I just can't. I think season 6 is worse. Let me make my case first. Alright, so I'm going to start with the positives though. Roy Harper returning. I love seeing Roy in the show, so having him come back was great. As well as Slade Wilson. The 2 Deathstroke episodes, great. Slade is one of my favorite villains of Arrow, so having him come back, that was great. So the flashbacks no longer being in the equation of the show, they had to figure out ways to fill the time that usually the flashbacks would take up. Setting the season up with 2 villains, one for the first half and one for the back half, I actually really enjoyed. That was a great way to kind of make up for it. Another positive I think I have for this season is the more involvement of Anatoly. Anatoly's been one of my favorite characters on the show, and so having him more present throughout the season was great. I don't like having him on the opposite side of Oliver because I enjoy the brothership him and Oliver have and the friendship. So having him on the opposite side, not a fan of that, but obviously, at the end of the season, they come back to the same team, the same side, and it's great. So, and I love seeing Anatoly, so that's awesome. Another positive that I have is we finally figure out who Vigilante is. I'm not so sure I'm a huge fan of the result, of who it was. I think I would have preferred it to be someone that we like. I was going to say who we knew. I mean, technically we did know this guy because of a flashback, but he was such an unimportant character at the time, and still was, really. So, not a great reveal. I would have preferred it to be someone else. I think there was rumors going around it was like Tommy or whoever. I would have way preferred that, but nevertheless, getting the reveal was, I think, a positive. Obviously, Crisis on Earth X. This isn't really a positive. It's not really a fair positive for the season because it just happens to be this season that they did Crisis on Earth X, my personal favorite crossover. But, I mean, I'll give it to them because I don't have a lot of positives for this season. The episode Fundamentals and the episode The Dragon, I loved both of those episodes. Fundamentals is the episode where Oliver is drugged and he sees Adrian Chase everywhere, which, by the way, loved seeing Adrian Chase again. Didn't think we would see him again, so great. Also, Oliver puts his old suit on and actually goes out and tries to kill Ricardo Diaz like he would have done back in season 1 or 2. And then The Dragon was the episode where we basically just spent the whole episode with Ricardo Diaz learning about his backstory, seeing what he kind of wants. The episode was meant to just flesh him out as a villain. Great episode. Because before that episode, Ricardo Diaz was just whatever to me. I haven't read the comics with him in it, so I didn't know the character before the show. So this episode really helped to flesh his character out and make him a better villain because of it. the actor who plays Tommy. Love seeing him back. And seeing the character, the human target, come back. That was pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all the positives I have for season 6. Now on to the negatives. So here's where I basically need to tell you the negatives that are so strong for me that pushes it below season 4. Basically, my first negative are the fight scenes. One thing I praise Arrow for are their great fight scenes, and this is honestly the only season where the fight scenes are just awful. They're just horrible. Say what you will about, everybody has different tastes, I guess, but personally, I just think majority of the fight scenes in season 6, I think maybe there were a few in the first episode and a few closer to the end of the season, but everything else, the fight scenes were just terrible. The previous negative was a big negative for me. This one's not as big, but I do just miss the flashbacks a little bit. It's not a huge negative. I didn't miss them too much, but I did miss them a little bit. Another negative, William, huge negative for me. William was annoying. He prevented Oliver from being the Green Arrow, which was another negative, by the way, having Diggle as the Green Arrow for so long, which I went back and watched the season on Netflix. It was only 3 episodes. Watching it on Netflix, it's actually not that bad, time-wise. But watching it week to week on TV was horrible. 3 weeks of Diggle being Green Arrow and Oliver basically taking a back seat in the show. I don't like when the main character takes a back seat in the show. So, not a fan. I love Diggle, but Diggle's not Green Arrow. It just did not work for me. William was annoying. He got better as the season went on, but he was still really bad for the whole first half. So, William's a big negative. Another negative is honestly how forced the conflict between Team Arrow was. They pushed so hard to just get a rivalry between the team, and it didn't work. It was terrible. I did enjoy the fight scene between them, but the journey in getting there just did not work. Please explain to me in the comments if it worked for you and why it worked, because it didn't work for me. Trust me, I love Arrow. I would love for it to make sense. But for me, it just didn't work. It didn't. Another negative for season 6 of Arrow was the villains. They weren't... Kate and James, I have grown to like the more times I watched the season. I actually think the actor, Michael Emerson, is great. But having a character who's just brains against a character who is known to fight physically didn't really work for me. Ricardo Diaz at least is a physical force, but he was very bland in season 6. Now the dragon episode did help, but that was way later in the season. It was close to the end. By then it just didn't even matter. So the other negative is they tried to do a team of villains halfway through the season, I believe, with Kate and James and the others. That didn't work, because it works now if you go back and watch it. But the first time watching it, I remember watching that scene where they all come into the room and it's like, oh, okay, we got Kate and James, Black Siren, this random guy who works for Kate and James. We got Anatoly, okay, cool. Then we got some random guy, it was Ricardo Diaz, which, knowing him now, it's like, after season 7, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, it works now. But at the time, we didn't know much about Ricardo. I didn't know much about Ricardo Diaz, so I didn't give a crap. And then the other vigilante, yeah, they had done the reveal, but again, I didn't care that much for the reveal. So, no, it just didn't work. One more negative for season 6 I have to mention is the episode Brothers in Arms. I think that was actually probably one of the worst. I can't actually, don't hold me to this. I think that actually is the worst episode of Arrow as a whole. That episode is terrible. Oliver and Diggle's, and this kind of goes with the whole Team Arrow versing one another, the forced drama between characters. Diggle and Oliver ending up with their fight so forced and stupid. And the whole Diggle wanting to be Green Arrow, like that whole storyline is terrible. I hate that storyline so much. So that's another negative for season 6. Overall, not a very enjoyable season. I think I've ranted on it a little too much now. Season 6 is my least favorite season of Arrow. Moving up to number 7. Yeah, number 7 is season 4. You knew you could trust me. It's not too high up. It's just above season 6. I just can't stand season 6. Season 4, it's still down at the bottom. So, season 4. Let's start with the positives. When I first watched it, I hated Damien Darhk. I thought he was a horrible villain. He just did not work on Arrow at all. And don't get me wrong, he still didn't work on Arrow. But the first half of the season, he's actually not bad. I watched the season a few times, and the first half, Damien Darhk is more serious. He has the magic bit to him, but he's more serious, and it actually kind of worked. So I would say Damien Darhk for the first half of the season worked, and that's a positive for me. Another positive, I actually really liked the new suit. Oliver's new suit, and Oliver being called the Green Arrow for the first time. Super cool scene at the end of the first episode when he's on the TV and he's like saying I'm a new hero and I'm the Green Arrow. Really cool. I did enjoy that. Okay, so this is a bit of a positive and a negative, but I'll just get it out of the way. Diggle finally becoming a superhero, sort of. He gets an identity, Spartan, but that's the positive part. The negative part is his mask. And I know I'm kind of doing a whole positive then negatives thing. But it's so close together, I just have to do it now. His mask is terrible, or his helmet, whatever you want to call it. It's terrible. It's complete. It's trash. Like, I didn't realize how trash it was until I rewatched it recently. And yeah, it's really bad. I don't know what they were thinking, but that helmet is really terrible. Curtis, Mr. Terrific, being introduced in this season. Positive. I really like Curtis, so super exciting to have that character join the cast. Thea as Speedy. Positive. Pretty cool. I did like... another positive would be Anarchy. I knew who Anarchy was before the show, mainly because of Batman Arkham Origins, because he's in that game. So seeing him was great, and also I think the actor playing him did a phenomenal job. So I did really enjoy his presence. The crossover, I guess, with Flash. I do kind of miss the Flash Arrow crossovers. They're not as extreme as the ones we have now, but they didn't need to be. Don't get me wrong, this is the weakest of the main big crossovers, but it was still I still enjoyed it. I love seeing Oliver and Barry together. Hawkman and Hawkgirl were introduced. Hawkgirl was technically introduced episodes prior on The Flash, but we meet Hawkman, we meet Vandal Savage, set up for Legends of Tomorrow, pretty cool. And I also enjoy Malcolm Merlyn. I know people get tired of seeing Malcolm Merlyn, but I do enjoy seeing Malcolm Merlyn. He is one of my favorite villains on Arrow. So, Vixen and Constantine. We hadn't seen Constantine since his show, so seeing him in season 4 was pretty cool. And we also got to meet Vixen, which was really great. I saw the animated movie Vixen. Thought it was pretty good, actually. So seeing her live action, pretty cool. Would have liked to see more of her. It's too bad we didn't get more of her. I know we got a Maya on Legends, but it would have been cool to see Mari more. That would have been cool. I don't find Felicity annoying as much as most people. I just don't, I guess. Usually what happens for me is I connect to a character, and I'm kind of on that character's side. Like, it's hard for me to kind of jump to the other side when it comes to characters. And Felicity was one of my favorite characters in the first couple seasons. So my final positive for season 4 is actually the fake out kind of death thing. They made us think at the beginning of the season, Oliver is kneeling down to a gravestone. Barry shows up, and we're left wondering who dies, right? They make us think at some halfway through the season that it's going to be Felicity. Now, I have a feeling majority of people were celebrating. I was not. I was actually kind of terrified. So, and then when they made it Laurel, oh gosh, I have to dodge bullets again. I actually was a little happy because it wasn't Felicity and it was Laurel instead. I personally just didn't connect with Laurel. I know a lot of people did, and I know people are going to dislike this video because of this, but I wasn't a super fan of Laurel. So having her be the one that died, I was totally fine with it. But I will say I did find that scene very emotional. That's my other positive, is how amazingly acted that scene was. I actually really dig it. Her death scene is really good. They made me, who did not care that much for Laurel, really emotional for that scene. And to seal the deal when Quentin shows up at the hospital and he falls to the ground. Oh gosh, that's so good. It's so good. Like I said, when I was talking about season 6, I love seeing Roy come back. So that was great. It has been a little bit, but I believe I remember the fight scenes being pretty good. Another thing I remember being pretty decent, pretty good in season 4 of Arrow was actually Diggle's brother. I actually did enjoy that storyline. And it just hit me. I have one more positive, and that's the underground world that Damien Dark set up, or whatever it was. I thought I dig that. That was really cool when Oliver and Diggle are like running through that underground city. I thought that was actually really cool. But that's my last positive for season 4. And now onto my negatives. So back half of season 4 is Damien Dark joking around. Not a fan of that. I would say Laurel as the Black Canary wasn't great for me. I think just really Team Arrow. I wasn't a fan of the team we had during this season. That wasn't great. The magic aspect in the flashbacks and present day and the flashbacks themselves, it can be considered a negative. I wasn't a huge fan of that. It was really boring, to be honest. The finale. The finale was weak. It's the worst finale of Arrow by far. It's just Oliver and Damien Dark exchanging punches. That was terrible. It looked bad. Nothing about that was good. It was all bad. It was just bad. Another negative would be the Felicity Oliver stuff. That's just kind of annoying, really. It's not needed. The drama, the forced drama, it's not. And trust me when I say this, when I get to eventually doing like Flash or, especially Flash really, you're going to hear me say this again. But forced drama, it's not necessary. It's just not. All right, moving on to number 6. We have season, drumroll please, 7. Season 7. Yes, season 7 is next. Now, this was actually really tough. I had to decide between season 7 or season 8. So obviously that kind of gives away what's next, but season 7 ended up being lower than 8, and let me say why. So starting off with the positives, season 7. I'm just gonna get this one out of the way. The prison scene storyline, that was great. One of the best storylines ever done on Arrow. Love when Oliver's in prison, because not only are the things in prison great, but even the things outside of prison were great. Another positive for season 7 was honestly the mystery of who the fake Green Arrow was. I love mystery, so not knowing who the fake Green Arrow was and kind of trying to figure that out was pretty cool for the couple episodes that we got. Also, the flash forwards. The first half, at least, of the flash forwards were great. They were very cool, especially in the very first episode when you just didn't know what was going on. Very much enjoyed that. Another positive, Roy Harper coming back, was great. I also really enjoyed just Team Arrow in general. I would say everybody was kind of in a different spot, but it was very cool. The team that we had put together. I would also say Black Siren was good in this season. Yes, Black Siren was good in this season. She won me over in this season. I think she was alright in season 6, but I think she actually won me over in season 7. So that's great. That's a positive. Another positive would be Ricardo Diaz. The first half of the season, I actually really enjoyed him. In the previous season, season 6, I thought he was just mediocre. Season 7, however, he definitely stepped up his game, and I actually really enjoyed him. Stanley. I really enjoyed the character Stanley. He was very creepy. Well, he wasn't at first, but when they get to the part where we find out he's like really messed up in the head, he does a great job at being creepy. I love how they brought Talia al Ghul back. Great, like that was pretty cool. The Slabside Redemption episode. That episode is great. I really love that episode. It was very well done. The fight scenes in season 7 are top notch. 2 more positives I have for season 7. One is in the episode, I forget what it's called, but it's the episode with Diggle and we meet his stepdad, and we find out that Diggle is a Stewart, like Jon Stewart. So that was really cool. And the last positive would be in the finale, when Oliver and Felicity are at the cabin and the Monitor shows up. That is sick. So those are my positives for season 7. Now moving on to the negatives. The villain, honestly, the back half in particular. Ricardo Diaz, like I said, was great. So the back half of the season, I guess Emiko was the villain. Not great. Could have been way better. So I'd say that was definitely a negative. Another negative was Oliver without the mask. I didn't think it would be that bad, and it did make sense for the story. But when Oliver is out there in the suit without his mask on, it's really bizarre. Maybe it's just me, but I thought it was really bizarre. Another negative for me was working with the cops. Not a fan. I didn't like that storyline. One more negative I would say is Mr. Terrific. The lack of Mr. Terrific. I really missed having Curtis on the team, like, besides just doing tech. I didn't like that they had him leave. That kind of stinks. I like Curtis. He's a good character. Even when the teams were fighting in season 6, I still enjoyed him. So, kind of stinks that they didn't have him doing much in season 7. Moving on to number 5. So we're on the top 5. Number 5 is season 8. The final season of Arrow. And the reason this season beat out season 7, it's kind of not fair because it was a shorter season. It was only, 12 episodes? I can't recall. Nevertheless, it was a short season. I think it was only 10 episodes, but don't quote me. Basically, I really liked this season. The first 3 episodes, 3-ish, I think, are great. Love the first episode. All the cool, little tidbits. Oliver's on a different Earth. He's on Earth 2. Yeah, he's on Earth 2. And we see, Moira again, Tommy, Malcolm. We see a bunch of characters we haven't seen in a little bit. Starting off on Lian Yu, where we have the Batman mask instead of Deathstroke's mask. Really cool. Love the twist with Diggle being there. Oliver tries to get out, but the doors are locked, and it's because that's our Diggle. Really cool twist. Really enjoyed that. So the first episode, great. Second episode, they go to Hong Kong. Very cool. Season 3 kind of, ties back to season 3. And then the third episode was when Thea comes back and Talia comes back again. And we have a cool, season 3 reminiscent episode. So that was really cool. And by the way, let's talk about this, because this is going to be this isn't really a negative or a positive, but I gotta mention it. And that's all the setup that Arrow's final season did for Crisis. did not pay off. Like, did anybody else notice that? How much they actually set up in this final season of Arrow, building up to Crisis, to not do any of it? At the end of episode 3, Thea asks Talia to work with her to not make another League of Assassins, but to make a League of Heroes. See, hear me out. I thought this was going to be sick. I thought we were going to have a cool, like, endgame type moment where Oliver's there, he's fighting the Monitor, or not the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and obviously Felicity wasn't in this season, so, we have all of a sudden on his comm, Felicity says something to him like, Oliver, reinforcements are here, or something like that, and Thea shows up with Talia, and she's got her, like, army of heroes. Now, I thought that was going to be sick. Kind of annoyed me there, because Arrow did the best at setting up for Crisis, so what the heck. I thought that would have been sick. I also thought they set up first off, loved the Russian episode. I don't know what it was called, but when they go back to Russia, that's a cool episode. Also, the episode where they're on Lian Yu again, very cool episode where Fires is alive, and I can't think of his name, but Slade's partner or whatever, the one who tortured Oliver in season 1 on the island, having them alive, that was really cool. And Yao Fei, that was really cool. Having pretty much everyone from Team Arrow there. Roy gets his metal arm, really cool. Another positive. Roy coming back, or continuing in this season, really cool. The future kids showing up was awesome at first. Don't get me wrong, they might have overstayed their welcome. But at first, that was such a cool way to end an episode. Like, oh my gosh. And how the ending of the first episode, oh my gosh. Destroying Oliver too? That was amazing. That was amazing. What a cool ending to an episode. Katana came back, China White. Loved all of the whole reminiscing of old seasons. That was cool. Would have loved more of it. We even got Adrian Chase in that first episode. Sick. And then I'm going to count Crisis on Infinite Earths as a positive because the Arrow episode of Crisis was pretty good. The finale was really great. Oliver's funeral. That's a cool finale. Felicity came back. So glad she was able to be in the final season. Say what you will about the character. If you don't like her, that's fine. But even if you don't like her, you gotta see why having her at least in the finale was important. Was great to see her back. We got basically everyone in the finale, so that was great. Diggle getting the lantern ring at the end. Sick. So moving on to the negatives. The kids. They were there too long. That was a pretty big negative. Bigger negative though, backdoor pilot. What? Like, are you kidding me? That kind of made me upset. Why the heck did we waste one of the final episodes of Arrow on a backdoor pilot for a TV show that majority of people did not care about? I personally didn't care about it. I was on that side. If you cared about it, good for you. But personally, I could not have cared less for Green Arrow and the Canaries. I've heard it's not happening now, and that's fine. That is fine. I don't care. The only thing that makes me kind of want it to have at least one season is the fact that they wasted an episode of Arrow. And not only just that one episode, they were building up to it, really, with Oliver training Mia and all of that. Don't get me wrong. Oliver training Mia didn't bother me too much, but we could have had more episodes in the final season, like the first 3 episodes. More reminiscent episodes. So that's a pretty big negative for me. Another negative, the episode where Oliver and Laurel are going through a time loop. It's been done too often, to be honest. Like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just did one in their final season. Legends of Tomorrow's done one. I've just seen it too many times, to be honest. Not saying that Arrow did it bad. I think Arrow did it fine. It's just minor. It's a minor negative, so it's not like I hated it. It's a minor negative for me. And that's pretty much it for season 8. So moving on to number 4. And number 4, fourth place, we have season 3. Starting off with the positives for season 3, I would say this was one of the early seasons of Arrow. I don't know if that counts as a positive, but it was when he was the Arrow. So that's a positive. Roy Harper becoming Arsenal, positive. The first Flash Arrow crossover, positive. I should stop saying positive, shouldn't I? Another positive for season 3. Nanda Parbat was kind of cool. I would say Malcolm Merlyn and all of his shenanigans. I can't believe I just said shenanigans. But all the crap that Malcolm Merlyn causes and stirs up in season 3 is pretty great. So I would say Malcolm Merlyn. Thea becoming the new evolved Thea, the more tough Thea. Way better than snobby rich girl Thea. Because I honestly did not care for Thea in season 1 and 2. So season 3 actually made me enjoy Thea. So positive. Meeting Ray Palmer is a positive. That was really cool. The connectivity between Flash and Arrow. It was so strong during this season of Arrow. And for Flash. Flash was in its first season. And the connectivity was just so great. I hate that they kind of abandoned, or not necessarily abandoned it, but they kind of like lessened the amount of connectivity between those two. I love the in the finale when Malcolm Merlyn says we just have to wait, and they're like, wait for what? And he goes, the thunder, and then Flash shows up and saves them. Such a cool scene. Love that scene. Another cool scene is their fight scene in Nanda Parbat when they're all fighting. That's really awesome. Another positive, Katana. Katana's a really cool introduction, or another cool character that we meet in this season. Amanda Waller's involvement in the flashbacks was really cool. Oliver in Hong Kong, kind of cool. I actually didn't mind. I actually enjoyed the Hong Kong stuff. I know a lot of people found it boring, and there were bits that were boring, but I did enjoy it. Another positive for season 3, I would say, was actually the Oliver Al-Sahim bit where he goes evil. I actually really enjoyed that. I don't know why, but I did enjoy that. This was still when Quentin Lance was trying to figure out who Vieira was and trying to imprison him. So I very much enjoyed that bit, and you'll hear that as another positive for season 1 and 2. But I did enjoy that a lot. That's the Suicide Squad episode. And you'll hear that again for season 2. I think the Suicide Squad episodes are pretty cool. And it very much like makes you feel that greater DC world. So yeah, that's another positive. I also really liked the reveal that we get in this season that Brick was the murderer for Malcolm Merlyn's wife. Thought that was a cool little thing we learned. And yeah. Moving on to the negatives. Big negative for me was actually Ra's al Ghul. Personally, I'm not a fan of the casting. He doesn't really look the part for me. He does make up for it with the acting, but especially in the scenes where he's fighting up against Oliver, in the scene where they're up on the mountain, right, and they take their shirts off, you look at Oliver and you're like, oh shoot, all right, he's quite large. You know, he could beat people up. Then you see Ra's al Ghul, and he looks like some dad. Some dad in his 50s, like, all right, you think you can beat me, son? Kind of deal. And it's like, yeah, Oliver is going to whoop you. But yet he wins. A little hard for me to grasp onto that, I guess, and believing that Oliver would lose to him. So I think that was the big thing. It's just the physicality of the actor who played Ra's. He didn't look intimidating to me anyways. So that's a negative for me. Another negative, I would say, were the episodes where Oliver was quote-unquote dead, and we're just stuck with Oliver recovering, and everybody's... And this is a similar problem I had with season 6 when Oliver just kind of takes a back seat. He kind of takes a back seat a little bit here as well. Although this one's not as bad because the reason is legit. It's a better reason for why Oliver's, not leading his team on the war on crime in Star City. So it's not as annoying as it was in season 6. Laurel as the Black Canary. It's forced. It's so forced. Her progression into being Black Canary and being able to fight trained assassins is hard, impossible. No, it's impossible. Hard to believe. No chance. No chance. So it kind of frustrates me there. One more positive I have is Slade coming back. But this is I'm going to mention this in the negatives because it's kind of both. He comes back, but, and don't get me wrong, the scene where they're on the island and Oliver gets the call from Malcolm, or calls Malcolm or whatever, and Malcolm says, I released Slade. That's cool. Watching that episode, got tense. I was like, oh shoot, Slade's loose? Like, what? Oh god, I'm scared. It was terrifying. But it's short-lived. So I guess it's actually kind of a positive because it was effective. It was effective. So I'll put that in the positives. Coming in at number 3 is season 5. This was hard, actually. I didn't think it would be this hard. But season 5 is... These last 3 are really good. Like, I love all 3 of these top 3. They're just so good. Like, they're great. So anyways, starting off with the positives for season 5. I love the new team. Which is such a huge step up from the team we had for season 4. We get Renee, who I didn't quite enjoy at first, but I grew to enjoy. Mr. Terrific, who I had gotten to know in season 4, and I liked him. So, very much enjoyed him. And, who was the other? We had... Artemis. Kind of cool, because I knew Artemis from Young Justice, so introducing her was kind of sick. Although, and then we got one more member, Ragman. That was really cool. I don't know if any of you watched this show when you were a kid, but I did, and that was my Babysitter's a Vampire. I watched that show as a kid and loved that show, and the actor who played Ragman played the villain of that show, Jesse the vampire or whatever, and he played Ragman, so that was really cool seeing him in this show. The flashbacks of season 5 are really good. When he's in Russia, again, like I said when I was talking about season 6, I love Anatoly, so more time with Anatoly is great, and we spend a lot of time with him in the flashbacks. So yeah, awesome, love that. Oliver in the flashbacks also was great. Season 5's villain, oh my gosh, Adrian Chase may actually be my favorite Arrow villain. It's close between him and Slade, but I love Adrian. No. Adrian is my favorite. I loved Adrian. He's so good. Oh my gosh, I hate that I can't remember the actor's name, but the actor who plays him is so good. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. He does a phenomenal job. He's great. Enjoyed the villain. When he's Prometheus, it was alright, but when he takes off the mask and we have him as just Adrian Chase, phenomenal. It's just great. Another positive, the finale, Leanne Yu. Best finale I've ever seen for any show. It's sick. It's a great finale. It's just great. So if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I'm not going to spoil anything. Go watch that finale. Even if you don't watch the season, just watch it. You don't have to. You'll pick up as you go through the episode. And you'll get the previously on Arrow anyway. Just watch that episode. It's phenomenal. Another positive for season 5 is the introduction of Talia al Ghul. I didn't know if they were going to introduce Talia in the show because we had gotten Nyssa back in season 2, then we got Raish in season 3, and that was it for a while. So I didn't think we were going to get Talia. So I was actually really excited when they introduced Talia on the show, and I love how involved she is in Oliver's story. How she helped train Oliver. She's one of the many who trained Oliver in the flashbacks. That was sick. Although I thought it was kind of crazy that she ends up working for Adrian. But it does totally stick to her character that she would be loyal to her father, because Talia's always been the one who's loyal to Raish, and Nis is the one who's kind of more against him. So I love that. That was really cool. Another positive I have for this season is the characters. All of the characters, I think, are just great in this season. And I love Oliver in this season. I love Oliver in every season, but this season in particular, he goes back to being darker. Season 4, he got lighter, which I should have probably mentioned as a little bit of a negative, but I kind of understood why they would make him lighter in season 4, because he's trying to be the Green Arrow, and the Green Arrow in the comics is, lighter. But Oliver is basically Batman wearing a Green Arrow costume. So, and I love Batman, if you haven't already figured that out. So, having Oliver back to his older self, where he's not afraid to kill villains, so good. So moving on to the negatives. I don't have a lot of negatives for this season. It's a pretty solid season, I would say, and you're going to notice that I don't have a lot of negatives for the top 3. But if I had to choose some negatives, I would say Artemis's betrayal is a little forced and stupid. Her reason is flawed for not wanting to be on Oliver's team anymore. Can't get behind that. It's kind of dumb. Another negative I have, having Prometheus as Prometheus for so long and not having the reveal of Adrian Chase. I would have loved more time having Adrian as like the villain, because he's great when he's not wearing the suit. So, I mean, maybe that. But that's pretty much it. I don't have a lot of negatives for season 5. I love that season. Moving on to number 2. Top 2, baby. We have season 1. I feel like it's pretty obvious now. Season 1, starting with the positives, it's a great show starter. Honestly, this is my favorite my favorite part of Oliver. Is that right? Favorite part? I don't know. This is my favorite version. Oh, there you go. My favorite version of Oliver. The killer. The crossing names off a list in a book. He's got his Alfred, Diggle stepping in as his Alfred kind of deal, as he's crossing names off the list. Diggle's kind of his moral compass. We had this whole mystery of Malcolm Merlin who sabotaged the boat, causing Oliver to be on the island. The flashbacks are great, where Oliver is like the new, he's like just this rich boy on the island. That's really good. He meets Slade, Slade's really cool in season 1. The dynamic between the two is fantastic. Malcolm Merlin's a great villain. Moira's really evil and twisted, and being on Malcolm's side is so cool. I like Tommy. I like Laurel in this season. They're great characters. I like Walter. Walter's a good character. Ooh, Helena. We get Huntress in this season. That's really cool. I enjoyed the actress who played her. I thought she did a great job. And that was a cool character to introduce. I would have loved to see her more in the show. But, I mean, what we got of her was great, so worked for me. The other positive I would say is they had a lot of filler episodes and they were good episodes, though. Usually I hate filler episodes. I just don't like them. But season 1 of Arrow had a lot of filler episodes, and they were just good. I don't know what made them great, but I loved them. They were just good. I don't know. I really love Felicity in this season. She's very funny. I enjoy her a lot in this season. And we also meet Roy in this season. So very cool meeting Roy. And the only other positive I could think of is the way they balance everything. I think everything is balanced very well. We've got Oliver doing his vigilante stuff. We got Oliver doing his moonlighting as a party owner, or a club owner, which, by the way, I miss club owning Oliver. That was a really cool, like, I don't know, thing in the show, having the club verdant. That was cool. Oh, and another positive, when Tommy finds out that Oliver's the Arrow, that's a cool dynamic that they got to play with. That was really neat. That was pretty much all the positives. Now, negatives, I would say Oliver was a little annoying in the flashbacks at first. The rich guy on the island. That was kind of it was alright. It was still great. It's a small negative, but it's a negative. Another negative for me, Thea is kind of annoying. She's a brat in season 1. Not a fan of that. And then my other negative was Count Vertigo. He's a huge Green Arrow villain, and I would have really enjoyed it if they actually gave him the eyepiece that makes people dizzy. That would have been really cool. And even if they didn't give him it in this season, it would have been really cool if he had gotten it eventually. But instead they just went down a drug route, which is fine. And that's one of the things I love about Arrow is the grounded bit. They like to make it very grounded. They wanted to make it more realistic in the early seasons. I respect that. I really enjoy that stuff. Realistic fiction. That's really cool. So, yeah. I'd say the only other negative is the whole Oliver, Laurel, and Tommy dynamic. It's really weirdly handled. So I would say the dynamic between them and Oliver's love for Laurel is kind of weird in season 1. It's like there's a point where honestly I just wanted Tommy to be with Laurel. I didn't want Oliver to be with Laurel. I didn't think he deserved Laurel, to be honest, because Tommy just comes in and he's just a good guy, and him and Laurel just have so much chemistry, and then Oliver just steps in and is like, nah, I want her. It is a little weird. So I'd say that's a negative. But that's pretty much it. I think that's all my negatives for season 1. And in first place, if you've heard every season I've said so far, you know exactly what I'm about to say. But coming in first is season 2. This is my favorite season. I wouldn't say by far. Actually, can I say by far? I don't know, because I really love season 1 and 5. But 2 is really good. It took everything that was great about season 1 and upped it. That's like the huge thing. Slade Wilson, that's my first positive, starting with the positives. Slade Wilson is a phenomenal villain. And until we got Adrian Chase in season 5, he was the best villain on Arrow. He was great. And the build-up that they started in season 1 all the way through season 2, while we know he's going to turn in the flashbacks and become Deathstroke, like, so well done. So well done. Sarah coming back was really cool. I didn't see that coming. So that's really cool. And she was the Canary. She's my favorite version of Black Canary on the show. So very much enjoyed that. I love the dynamic between Sarah and Oliver. I will say, though, when Sarah first comes back and Oliver and Sarah begin, like, becoming romantic again, that seemed a little out of nowhere a little bit. Like, I don't know, it seemed a little weird that they start sleeping together again, and it's like, Oliver, you just spent all of season 1 trying to get Laurel. Tommy even died for Laurel, and now you're kind of just giving that up for Sarah? Like, have you learned nothing? Like, that's kind of a negative, isn't it? Whoops. I kind of jumped to negatives, didn't I? I think that's just because I know there's so many positives. So that's that's one of my negatives. But positives, we get Nissa Al Ghul in this season. That's really cool. We get Anthony Ivo in the flashbacks. Really cool. The flashback scenes are amazing. These are the best flashback scenes in all 5 of the flashback season years. These were top notch, with Slade becoming Deathstroke, with Sarah coming back in the flashbacks as well, being with Anthony Ivo. We meet Anatoly in the flashbacks, which was really cool, and then we get him present day. The Suicide Squad was a positive. This is the first season we meet the Suicide Squad, and we meet Amanda Waller. Really cool stuff. Felicity's pretty good in season 2. Diggle's great. Oliver's great. Roy becomes more involved in the team, and I love having Roy on Team Arrow. That was really cool. Oliver trying to fight for his company in season 2 was really cool. I love that they still involved Walter, even though Moira was, going to jail and stuff. I did really enjoy the scene. Oh my gosh. The scene where Oliver, Moira, and Thea are with Slade, and Slade's gonna kill one of them, just like in the flashbacks with Shadow and Sarah. That is a heavy scene. Heavy. And I personally found Moira to be really annoying after season 1 because of how awful of a mom she is. But oh my gosh, that scene made me feel for her and for Oliver and for Thea. Oh, it's such an emotional scene. One of the most emotional. I've noticed the most emotional scenes for both Flash and Arrow are when their parents die. Like what? Except for Oliver's dad. That's not that emotional. But Oliver's mom, Barry's parents, oh my gosh. Like, so emotional. I love it. It's crazy good. It makes me tear up. It's crazy. Such a good scene though. Such a good scene. All 4 of them were phenomenal in that scene. It's just, jeez. Another positive, Quentin Lance working with Team Arrow. Pretty cool change up. Laurel being against Team Arrow for the first half, I'd say is a negative. I'm kind of just combining my positives and negatives together here for season 2. So I'm just going to kind of go through. Meeting Barry Allen. Introducing Barry Allen for the first time. That was really cool. So that's pretty much all my positives and negatives for season 2. And that wraps up my list. That's my ranking of all of the seasons of Arrow. I hope you guys enjoyed my video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Like it if you liked it. If you didn't like it, I guess go ahead and dislike it or keep it to yourself. Whatever you want to do, I guess. It's fine. I understand. Drop a comment. What's your favorite season of Arrow? What's your least favorite season of Arrow? I would love to hear your guys' rankings. Arrow, I can say, is my second favorite TV show, and I'm going to miss it. I'm glad they got to go out on their own terms. They had a great season ending, and I've heard Stephen Amell saying that he wants to do another season. And as much as I would love that, it wouldn't work because they ended it so well. I don't want them to ruin that. So yeah, that's pretty much the video. Subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video.